Hello. On today's episode of The Christian Next to You, I'm here with my friend Justin Gray, and he's going to talk to us about who he is and where he's come from to now being the Christian next to you. Hope you enjoy this episode, and I hope you enjoy getting to know Justin a little bit better. What's up, and welcome back to The Christian Next to You. It has been a minute. Summer has just gotten absolutely ridiculous, and I was like, man, I'm going to keep this podcast going through the summer. And then the summer hit, and I was like, there is no possible way that I could film and edit. And so I hope that you haven't gone away and you decide to stay away forever. I hope you are back here with us on this new episode. Like I said in the intro, here with my friend Justin Gray. I'm going to just throw it over to him. Justin, tell us a little bit about who you are, where you live, what you're up to nowadays.
So my name's Justin Gray. I'm currently living in Grand Canyon, Arizona. I originally grew up here in the Southwest Oklahoma area. I have my beautiful wife Jill that goes here, and my amazing son Thatcher as well that goes here. Yeah. My So I'm stuck in Grand Canyon, Arizona. I like to say because I've been fighting for, I want to say since 2012 to get back here.
Wow, I did not know that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, so in 2010 I joined the Navy. I turned 18. I graduated in May, and then boom, off to boot camp in July.
Wow.
And then haven't really consistently lived here ever since. But this is home for me. All the time off that I get, I'm always here. Trying to do the best I can. So
cool, man. When did you meet Jill?
I met Jill in summer school of 2010.
Let's go.
Yeah, she was actually there to get ahead, and so she could take college courses. I think it was sophomore year of high school, and I was just a big dummy. I failed a class on tardies, and didn't apply myself in algebra 2, and that's where I met her, as algebra 2. So yeah,
and listen, algebra 2 is my demise.
Dude, I don't do math.
Yeah.
So
cool. So you met at school, and then what was that like after that? Did y'all just start talking to each other and get together right away, or was it a process?
It was a process.
Yeah.
For sure. I was, like any dumb young high speed teenager, all speed no direction, right? So I just kind of full board in one direction, and at the time that was the Navy. And I told Jill that, it's like, oh, well, after summer school, I leave for the Navy in July, and that kind of was like, oh, that's not going to work for me. So it kind of just cut off right there. And I ended up getting married to someone else, and obviously that didn't really work out. We were both really young and didn't really know how to make that work, and I think the desire for that kind of just trickled away, and we ended up getting divorced, sadly. And I don't know, just by circumstance, somehow Jill fell back in front of me in my life, and I was like, well, I mean, it's not a coincidence, right? It can't be. So pursued that, and the happiest I think I've ever been in my life with her. Way better woman than I deserve, for sure.
Yeah, we talk about that all the time. You're like, man, she's way more than what I ever.
Oh man, it's great. It's great.
Cool. And then how old's your son?
My son is 3. He will be 4 in August. And I mean, as I'm sure he's a tyrant, man. He's 100% boy to the max, right? He just likes to hop around, have fun. Super sweet kid, super smart.
Yeah.
He gets that from his mom, obviously.
I've never met a kid with that much energy. It's impressive.
Yeah. Oh man, from the moment he wakes up until the second his eyes close to actually fall asleep, he's just at 11.
That's cool. Okay, so tell us a little bit about what life was like growing up. And you lived in Moore, I assume?
I was right on the cusp of Moore, right?
Okay.
So I was that Santa Fe, that cross street there.
Yeah.
That's apparently the border between
Gotcha.
Oklahoma City and Moore. So I'm on the Oklahoma City side of Santa Fe.
Okay, so you grew up here with your parents, or tell us a little bit about your home life growing up.
younger, like way younger years growing up, I grew up in a tiny little town, Sasakwa, Oklahoma, on a little like pseudo farm type thing situation. And home life was really weird. I didn't have like the best role models for like, a father figure, a mother figure in a household. And that was really interesting. And they eventually split up as well. And I stayed in Sasakwa, Oklahoma for a little while with my mother. And my dad moved to Oklahoma City. And whenever I was, I think, 13, almost 14, uh, my dad was involved in like the quadruple homicide thing in right off of Grand and 35. And
Which that was a huge thing.
it was a
Like that
huge
came
thing.
out. Yeah.
Yeah, at that time it was huge. And it was really hard for me to metabolize that as a 14-year-old kid, and my mom even less so. So she kind of went off the deep end there, got into like she coped with drugs and like all the bad stuff. So I made the choice to reach out to my grandparents, and they were kind enough to take me in and raise me as their own from 14 until I left for the Navy at 18.
Wow.
Yeah.
And that's wonderful that you had those people in your life to step up and
Oh,
help
so
you that
so
way.
incredibly fortunate for sure. Yeah.
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 Are you an only kid, or did you have siblings who went through that as well with you?
I have a little sister that went through that with me as well a little bit. She kind of like trailed behind me in a few steps of it, which was difficult in its own aspects because you always want the best for. But whenever you deal with someone that's similar to you and just as stubborn but in a different way, it's hard to be able to word that in a constructive way as
Yeah.
as a 14-year-old kid to a 9, 10-year-old girl.
Yeah.
It's hard. But overall, I'm the middle of seven. Like my dad had kids prior to his marriage with my mom, and my mom had kids after my dad passed. So
Wow.
yeah,
I did not know that.
yeah.
Yeah. Do you talk to all these different brothers and sisters, or is it just a
Uh, talk to him. Our relationship is not as, I don't know. We're not super super close, but we're aware of each other and acknowledge each other.
yeah.
Some of us wish we were closer, but it's kind of impossible. We're all spread out.
Hmm.
So
Okay. So tell me about your journey with God through all this. Did you believe in God? Were you
oh,
a church grower? What I can't imagine that was an easy thing to go through. And
no, no, it wasn't. So whenever I was on the farm back in Sasakwa, like church wasn't really a thing that never really crossed our minds. My mom was like weirdly spiritual, and like, but it was more of like a agnostic type thing. It's like there's a higher power, but I don't know what that higher power is,
yeah.
and this, that, and the other. So that left a big question mark for me. And I was like, well, what do we do? How do we find this? And then, fortunately enough, whenever my grandparents took me in, like I started going here every Sunday morning, night, and Wednesday night, and then I got involved with the youth group here pretty heavily, and that was at the time the Legers did their Thursday night Bible study youth group thing, and so I was, let's see, so that's like 4 times a week. I was doing some church related thing, and finally, Jason was able to get through to me. He at camp baptized me when I think I was 16 years old. Yeah, and
I had Kayla on. She was one of the episodes, and she talked about her and Jason kind of running the youth program, and they realized they had an impact on kids, but I don't think they realized what they did.
yeah,
And I don't think they realized what major impact they had. And you say all the time, you're like, if it wasn't for Jason, I don't know where I'd be
oh
right
man,
now.
if there was no Leger family, there would be no like me where I sit today. It's
Yeah.
insane. Like the impact that they had on my life is incredible. Like they weirdly stepped up and filled that role as like the mother and father figure example of like what you know a godly house is like. Yeah.
Man, that's so cool to hear.
Yeah, it's hard to say.
Yeah. And so how did that help you in your walk with God, and how did that help you just as a developing teenager to have those people in your life? What did you do to take advantage of the situation that God blessed you with? Do you feel like you latched on to different friends that helped you out throughout the process, or just the Legers, or kind of walk me through what life looked like once you got in the church and
So I was
beyond?
so I was really tied to the hip of Mitchell Offiero at the time. Like he was like my go-to buddy like for the longest time before I left for the Navy. And the Ofieros as a whole, they're good people, and they definitely wanted to take me in as one of their own as well. Like that seems to be like an MO of theirs, right? They love to help and nourish, and but because of that, anything youth related, I was probably always going to be there in one capacity or another. Like sometimes whether I wanted to or not. It's like it's easy to get caught up, and it's like, well, I'm just tired. I'm blasted from school or track practice or something. It's like I just want to go to sleep. It's like no, you don't have that luxury of going.
Yeah.
So,
Which are you, when you look back, are you
oh,
glad?
when I look back, I'm like incredibly thankful for it. But at the time, it's like so begrudgingly.
Yeah.
You have to like take yourself out of it for the moment and not
Hmm.
just go through the motions, and then everything else will set in on you.
From my perspective as a youth minister, I see all these kids involved in these different sports or activities, and they're just so tired. And it's like, man, I tell you, go to that Thursday night Devo. Like, go to it, man. You're going to be blessed by going to it. And they don't always see it like that because they're so tired and they feel the tiredness from all these different
Mm-hmm.
things. But man, it's like, it really is there to be a blessing to you. It's not like, oh, we have to get together on Thursday
Mm-hmm.
night. Like, it's seriously like an awesome thing. And so I think maybe hearing that would be a cool perspective to one of the kids in a youth group right now, or somewhere out there
Mm-hmm.
that doesn't want to do it, but is like, hey, if I do it, I'm going to be blessed as a
Oh man,
result
you,
of it.
you you'll there's it can't affect you negatively. It
Yeah.
just won't, right? Like
Yeah.
you surround yourself around better people, it just makes you better.
Hmm.
And it's easy to get caught in with your high school friends that don't necessarily believe or think the same way, but like, if you want to have the best of both worlds, bring them to the activities. Like
Yeah.
that's the best way to do it. That way you can make your life in the church bleed out into the world and,
Hmm.
bring some people with you, and then you get that, have your school friends at church with you too.
Yeah. And you're like, wow, they're not just my school friend. They're
Yeah,
like my
exactly.
friend.
Yeah, yeah, it's great.
That's
Yeah, and
cool.
that's really
Yeah.
hard to do.
Oh, very much
Yeah.
so. Yeah. Especially if in high school, it's hard to not live a double life. I mean, if we're being
Mhm.
honest, it's
Mhm.
hard to not go to school and be one person, then be at church and be another. Tell me a little bit, because you're going through this hard time. You get brought into the church, and then you said when you're 16, you got baptized.
Mhm.
Tell me a little bit about, in your mind, what led you to that decision, and if looking back, do you regret that? Are you glad you did it then? Kind of talk us through that
I
process a
mean, that
little
was
bit.
like one of like the most important steps in my life, and the, one- I'm not really a super outgoing person anyway. I like to be in the background and like help things move along. I'm definitely not the guy on the stage type person. So that was a kind of a hindrance even before I got baptized, because like my perception of it is like, well, if I'm at camp and if I want to get baptized and the whole camp's gonna surround the pool, I'm getting
Yeah.
baptized. I'm like, I don't want that. Like I don't want it to be a show. I just want to do the thing and move on. And Jason's like, yeah, you can do that, dummy. So I was like, okay, then let's go do it. And
That's awesome.
yeah, and moving on from there, it's just it gives you a different perspective. You don't really think it does, but like the action of actually doing that, it's kind of like you wake up. Like everything before that's kind of like a weird hazy dream type thing, but then you wake up, you're like, holy smokes, like this is for real.
Yeah.
And yeah, man, I don't know. It's just like the awakening, of like this world.
That's a really cool way to put it. Baptism being an awakening, because it is. I mean, it is opening your eyes to a new life. Like,
Mm-hmm.
and that's the way it's put in Scripture, is this new birth, this new life, and it's good to look at the past and let it be hazy, because as you get older and you start to think back, it's like for some people the past gets really like even hazier. For some people it becomes clearer and clearer,
Mm-hmm.
and you're able to look back and see the providence of God throughout your life and be like, wow, like, look at where I came from to what I am now, or what,
Yeah.
and you see God throughout that entire thing. And it's hard to see that when you're in the moment. And so, how old are you now again?
I'm 30.
You're
I'm an
30. So
old
you
man.
look
I
back.
was the oldest man on that trip, man. I'm still struggling with that.
We just went to Six Flags with the youth group, and Justin came up to. Was it in the hotel when he said it?
Yeah, I think I just walked up to you, put my arm around you. It's like, dude, I just had this like epiphany. I'm the old man here, and that's never been like the case for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're 30, and you look back to what 16 years ago, and I'm bad at math. Good
14,
thing
15
I need to
years
go to
ago.
summer school. Yeah, 14, 15 years ago, and you're
Yeah.
like, man, I've been a Christian for 15 years now.
Mm-hmm.
How does that make you feel? Like, what comes to your mind when you think of that truth?
I mean, you wish you could think, I was this perfect Christian for the past, 14, 15 years, but you're not. That's the reality of it, right? Like, I was baptized at 16. I had 2 more years to go to high school and be involved with in the congregation here and all the camps and super sessions and everything that, was put on because of this congregation here. And go off to the Navy of all branches, right? It's like some of the most foul-mouthed, you know, worldly people, like all getting together from all kinds of different walks of life. And now, like, you're tasked with like being this light for them. It's not easy, especially being like a low-ranking person going through all these things. So like, I definitely have fallen short more times than I can count. But I do like to think that I'm spending my time now trying to make up for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's all we can do. I mean, we
Yeah.
can't go back and
No.
fix it or do it any differently.
Mhm.
And that's for some people that's a really hard truth and like a hard thing to come to terms with, but for other people it's just like you got to own it. And like when you own it, it's the best thing you can do because
Mhm.
you can only affect what happens now and tomorrow. That's
Yeah.
all you can do.
I mean, and that's the thing too. It's like self-talk's really important. Like if you're gonna tell yourself you're something, then you're gonna like live to that expectation, right? So
Yeah.
for the longest time, it's like, oh man, I suck. This is awful. Blah 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 blah. But then you twist that's like, well, if I suck, then I'm gonna be better.
Yeah.
And that's hard. It's easier said than done always. But like even right now, like I'm a little bit displaced from my family because we're trying to get back to Oklahoma. My wife and son are staying with my grandma here in Oklahoma. Meanwhile, I'm still working and living in Arizona. I just happen to be here on leave. And yeah, self talk's really important, man, because you have no one else to talk you out of your ruts. I literally like just like write on like my mirror in the morning. So like I'll brush my teeth and it's like, hey, don't suck. So it's the little things that you do that take like a half second that can make like the biggest difference in your life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's it like being a Christian when you're off kind of by yourself in the Grand Canyon?
Dude, it's hard because there's
Yeah.
no one there to hold you accountable.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to be like super honest with yourself as to like what you're doing and why. And I try and make myself accountable to like I call Jason probably. I try to call Jason. He's a busy man, but I try and talk to him at least once or twice a week. To talk about things and bounce things off of him. And I talk to my wife as much as I can, and just say what's going on, and that way there's no weird like shroud of my life in Grand Canyon because it'd be really easy to be a dirtbag human being there
For
with no
sure.
accountability.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can definitely understand that. And it, when you come to Southwest when you're on leave,
Mhm.
you're worshiping with 300 people,
Mhm.
and then you go back home and you don't have that. It's like you've got to hold yourself accountable.
Mhm.
And I'm sure, I mean, I don't know if you're an emotional guy or not, but what feelings do you get when you're back at this place when you get to come back home for leave and stuff?
It feels great, man. Like, it's like a piece of me will always be here. Like in Oklahoma, like with this congregation. Um Whenever I come back, it's like you feel whole again. Like it's I love the people here, and like that's why I want to be here. I mean, cuz some people will disagree, but Oklahoma's not the best place in the world to live overall, right? Like it's
Yeah.
super hot, it's super humid, the bugs are all over the place and out of control sometimes, but it's the people that make it for me, and I think
Yeah.
that's my whole life's here.
Mm-hmm. Man, Oklahoma really isn't that great. But listen, I tell people all the time because I lived in Texas for a little bit. I was like, man, Texas is awful, and they're like, why? I was like, hey, Texas is actually pretty gorgeous. Like Texas is a pretty cool
Yeah,
place.
that's great.
I just from Oklahoma, you've got those rivals. You've just got to hold to that. Like
Mhm.
Texas, you stink, dude. All right, so you're here on leave. You go back to the Grand Canyon. What, 2 days?
Yeah, I'm gonna probably leave Saturday morning.
Yeah. So how does how does a time like this, how does having this opportunity to talk about your faith, how does that affect you moving forward in life?
I mean, it's just kind of like it's like the recharge that I needed, right? Like you can sit in silence or just kind of like this weird isolation and like be on this planet by yourself, but like no one's going to make it through this world and be spiritual and be godly like by themselves. Like you need each other, you need the congregation, you need God. And this was the recharge I think I needed. Like I'm going to go back to that isolation and stuff obviously. Like it's just the nature of the beast right now. But definitely, I think I've gotten enough to push me through
It's
the
awesome.
next timeline
Yeah.
until I'm back again, right?
Yeah, for sure. I'm glad to hear that. What encouragement would you offer to a Christian that might be watching this, whether that's someone who's experienced being in the military or experienced living somewhere where there's not like a huge community around them? What encouragement would you offer to any Christian out there listening to this?
I mean, I would always just boil it down because I'm not a very smart person, obviously, right? But I would just boil it down, and what I always do is boil it down to the simplest of terms, right? Like, if you can help someone, that's just what you do. Like, that's just what you do. It's the right thing to do. It might inconvenience you a little bit, but in the grand scheme of things, you're gonna be okay. Like, just always do it. If you're in a position to do it, just do it. And that's definitely something that has helped me because I think I get more out of it than I think the person I'm helping gets out of it. Like camp. Like I went and did camp with you guys, was it a week and a half ago now?
2.5 weeks ago.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's been a long time
Yeah.
already. But like I got so much out of that. Like I felt like I was cheating a little bit
Yeah.
because like it's like I know the kids are just loving it and they're getting a
Mhm.
lot out of it, but it's like nah, it's like it feels like it's for me too.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I feel like it's designed that way. It's like it's kind of a trick, honestly. It's
Mhm.
like, hey, I
Mhm.
need you to come and be a counselor, and like I've never talked to a counselor, and they're like, oh man, that was horrible.
Mhm.
I didn't have any fun. It's like I think the counselors usually have more fun and a better time at camp than
Mhm.
the campers do, which is a
Mhm.
good little plug out there for the kids that are going to camp right now. You want to be a counselor.
Yeah.
Okay, so what about for someone who's not a Christian that might be listening to this? What encouragement would you offer them? What has helped you throughout your life when you were going through hard times? That process you went through from non-Christian to Christian. What advice would you offer to that person who might be listening or watching?
Dude, that's a tough one.
Yeah, it is.
That's a really tough one. I think regardless of being a Christian or not, you know right from wrong,
Yeah.
and very often than not, the right thing's not always the easiest thing to do, and you just got to be comfortable being uncomfortable. Like just got like just helping someone, right? Like
Mhm.
just do the right thing. Like, it's like if you see a wallet somewhere and there's like $500 in there in cash, you could take it and never get caught. It's not the right thing to do. Like you're taking food out of someone else's,
Mhm.
mouth. So yeah, just do the right thing. Like it's so cliche and simple sounding, but like it works.
Mhm.
And then I think you'll grow as a person, and then I think you'll want to seek more the better person you are. I mean, and it doesn't hurt.
I feel like when yeah, no, no, no. Sorry. I thought you were gonna keep saying
No,
something.
no, no.
I find it funny how you use the wallet illustration. Is that because Mason lost his wallet at the trip this week?
Perhaps.
Perhaps.
I didn't
I
really even think about it like that, but yeah, it's just a really generic like situation
yeah, yeah.
too.
I think it's interesting how when people are seeking, it's like when people are doing the right thing. You either when you think about people who are seeking, you either have people who are like have been working up to that moment. It's like I keep doing these right things. Like why am I doing this? There's got to
Mhm.
be a higher power. But
Mhm.
on the other like the other hand, you have some of these people that are going lower and lower and lower and
Mhm.
lower, and they get to the very bottom. Then that's when they start seeking.
Mhm.
And so I find it interesting that um, I feel like I've been both of those in my life. I don't know if you've experienced the same thing, but some of the best seeking comes from when I'm at the very bottom and I can't go anywhere else. I'm like, I have to find something, I have to do better.
Mhm.
But then also, I never feel closer to God than when I'm serving continuously.
Mhm.
Like I'm constantly serving, I'm helping other people, I'm putting myself in the back seat. That's when I feel like I'm closest to God. And there's usually exhaustion that results as that happens. I gotta imagine you're exhausted right
Dude,
now.
I'm gassed.
I mean, it's been what, 3 weeks nonstop.
Yeah, for sure.
3 weeks nonstop of serving and helping and going on trips and doing all these different things. And so I hope that as a result of all that you've done, it's not like a draining thing negatively, but it's you're exhausted, but you wouldn't want it any other
Oh
way.
man, yeah. I mean, if I could be exhausted for the next, forever doing this stuff, I would.
Yeah.
Like I love it. And I wouldn't have it any other way. Like there's nothing better to put your energy into,
Hmm.
and that's well spent.
Yeah,
Well
for
spent.
sure. I think about Jesus and his ministry. It's like,
Hmm.
man, that guy was exhausted
Oh yeah.
all the time. And I bet if you asked Jesus, would you go back and do it any other way? He'd probably say no. And he had his time where he went off and rest and he spent alone time with God. And
Hmm.
it's interesting. I make that connection with
Hmm.
you and Jesus that, you're about to go have this alone time. And so I guess my encouragement to you is like, see it as a blessing and utilize it and let it be a time for growth. And then you're always welcome back to Oklahoma to come back and help us out, man.
I
So,
appreciate it. Yeah,
yeah.
I mean, I definitely want to be involved as much as you'll allow it. So
I
yeah.
don't know, man. After this trip, I'm starting to change my mind
I
about you a
know.
little bit. So,
Yeah.
well, dude, do you have anything else you want to share?
Uh, Not really. I'm not a super eloquent, talkative person. So I mean, just do your best and help others. That's all it really boils down to.
Yeah.
And when you do that, I think it will make you want to seek more. Like you feel really good helping others and doing good things, and it's like, well, there's something to this, right?
Hmm.
It's just like I do like the scale of one side or the other that you illustrated. That was, I don't think, any closer to the truth than you can get. Like that's just the way it is, whether you
Yeah.
want to believe it or not. So yeah, just do good things.
Yeah.
Love everyone.
Absolutely, man. Well, I appreciate it very much. I'm glad you got to join us. Hey, he thinks he's not a very good speaker, not very eloquent in speech. He is. Let him know that you think that as well. So, guys, thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of The Christian Next to You. We will continue to be doing episodes every other week as the summer continues. It has finally ramped down, and so we're going to be back on schedule. Justin, I appreciate you, man. It was
Thanks
a
for
great
having me, man. Yeah.
conversation. Thank you guys for tuning in. I hope you will take this time to leave a review on Spotify or Apple Podcasts and leave a like on the video on YouTube or comment and subscribe to the channel. It goes a long way and I greatly appreciate it. Thank you so much for joining us. I've been your host, Parker LaGrange. I love you. God loves you. And we'll see you guys in the next episode.